Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get into the episode, now we talk about a lot of music things on this podcast, and very occasionally we go on a tangent. It's once every 10 episodes we might go on a tangent about something. But Joy and I, before we hit record, I use the expression "kettle of fish." Now, you would say, oh, that blah, blah, blah over there, that's a completely different kettle of fish, meaning it's something that's different, sort of.
But I had never heard that phrase before.
Heard that expression.
So I was thinking like a kettle, like you put your tea in. And so I was like, why would you put fish in a kettle? And Tim's like, no, the thing they use to get it out of the ocean, which I've physically seen that thing before, but I had no clue it was called a kettle. So here's a question for our American Best fans. Have you heard this term? Is this a UK term? Because when I Googled it, there's a few different places. Like there's a movie named after it, a bar in New York. So I guess it's a generally used phrase. So I'm just curious if my fellow US based, well, Tim's in the US, not too, but who were born in the US have heard kettle of fish.
As an expression.
As an expression. But yeah, I was like sitting here picturing, I'm like, wouldn't that like make your tea taste weird if you had cooked your fish in it like earlier?
Well, maybe people enjoy fish tea. I don't know. Is that a thing?
No, bad tip. That's taking it too far. You've lost it. We're done. That's where I draw the line. All right. So what do you have for us, sir?
Okay, so I'm going to open the episode on the music side of things, because, we are loosely a music podcast, with a CD of the week. And it's like a CD of the week / music news.
Okay.
So my CD of the week is the Queen album, the 1989 album, The Miracle. Now, this is an album which is one of the first Queen albums I bought when it came out. In fact, I think it was possibly the very first Queen album I bought when it came out in 1989. I was discovering the music of Queen, a lot of the albums and songs that I enjoyed came out way, way before I got into music.
Yeah. But
I remember when this album was released. It was this one, and then it was Innuendo. I remember buying both of those when they came out, and everything that they released after the fact. Okay. And this album has got the tracks I Want It All on there: Invisible Man, Breakthrough, Scandal. It's a lot of sort of late 80s into the early 90s Queen stuff. This is when they really embraced their sort of pop musicness. There's some rockers on here, but it is really sort of pop music that you would expect from that kind of era. And
the front cover is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of how they got to this, where, a lot of rough drafts of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird, isn't it?
It's terrifying. I've seen it before, and like you bring it up, I can see Tip's holding it in his hand, but I've seen like pictures of it. I think I've even owned this album previous, and the way they've morphed their heads together is a no thank you from me.
Well, what it symbolizes is that up to this point in Queen, all the songs were credited to the individual songwriters, and it created some tension in the band, like Bohemian Rhapsody, which was written by Freddie Mercury. The B-side of that, when it was on the 7-inch single, was Roger Taylor's I'm in Love with My Car. And he wrote that song. So Freddie was getting all these royalties from Bohemian Rhapsody, but Roger Taylor was getting the same royalties because he wrote the song on the B-side. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff where so-and-so was getting paid more money than me, and this was that. And it was creating a little bit of tension in the band. So they decided that for this album, regardless who wrote it, every song was just credited to Queen.
Well, that's smart, because that would have been right after, 88, 89. So right after Freddie Mercury was diagnosed, I think, with HIV, and they were probably in an interesting time in their career. That makes sense. Okay, maybe it's less terrifying now.
Yeah, it's still a terrifying cover, but that's what it symbolizes.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll give them that. All right, what's the news associated with this?
Okay, so as I said, this album came out in 89, and this album was unique in so much as that there was a lot of B-sides and alternative songs off this album. I remember buying singles and a few picture discs from this time, and there was non-album B-sides on here. Normally a B-side is an instrumental version or a song you've heard before or a live version you've heard before. Yeah, there was a lot of extra material that came out around the time of The Miracle. So Queen had been running a teaser campaign in the last few weeks about this song called Face It Alone. And that song was released today on your favorite streaming YouTube thing, MySpace, mini disc streaming.
It's definitely going to be on a Hit Clips next week.
It'll be on a hit. That's what I was looking for, a Hit Clips. But it came out today. And I heard it. I mean, what they've done is that they've worked some studio magic and they've copy pasted some stuff in there and made it into a proper track. It was really just an outtake of this album, and it was a Freddie Mercury vocal that they reworked into a song, basically. And it's okay. I mean, it's no innuendo, it's no Killer Queen or anything like that, but it certainly fits in with this album that it came from originally. And even have you heard it?
No, I haven't. I've seen headlines about it, though. And I know that seems to be something they've done. They've done that with Michael Jackson, too, right? Like found some little blurbs and made it into a new song.
Yeah. And I didn't pick up on this initially, but my friend Hog, Paul Summerton, emailed me today to send me the link, because he'd heard it. And he's right. It almost sounds like a James Bond song.
Huh. That's cool.
Which is interesting, and it is nice to hear Freddie Mercury singing something brand new, because every cool. Freddie Mercury song I've heard 1,000 times, even stuff that he's was sang on Roger Taylor's solo albums with The Cross, his solo work, the album he did with Montserrat Caballé, every variation of the Freddie Mercury world I've heard to death. So to hear something fresh I've never heard before with his vocal on it was actually pretty cool to hear.
Well, your friend Hog over here better make a copyright of that real quick, because we're going to find out the new Bond theme.
And wouldn't that be funny if it was? That'd be fantastic. Funny.
He'd be like, I said it first, everyone. That'd be funny. I mean, does it have like that larger than life kind of feel to it? Is that why?
It does. It's not a rocker. But it has that kind of Bond, like you could imagine the titles running around on a Bond film and that song playing. Absolutely,
that makes sense.
It's got that sort of feel about it.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I've seen the headlines, but I haven't listened. Maybe I'll give it a listen and give you guys my thoughts next time when we record.
There we go. And the other thing, just to wrap up on the Miracle, as well as this song "Face It Alone," they announced that they're coming out with the Miracle box set. Now, this Miracle box set has been teased for years, literally for years, because there was so much extra material around this time.
Yeah.
So on our last episode, we was talking about box sets and how much box sets cost. The box set that I may have sent Hannah the link for Christmas, just saying, is $190. Now, it is 5 CDs, a DVD. I think it's 2 vinyl records and a hardback book and a press kit and a something and a something. So it's probably a little bit more than I think it should cost, but it's got more in it than the Guns N' Roses box that we discussed last
still
week.
Cheaper than the other one. If it were, like $500, Tim over here would be like, Freddie Mercury better come up from the grave and bring it to my house.
Exactly. But I mean, as I said, it's about $190.
It's not terrible.
No, I had the News of the World box set that they came out with a number of years ago. So to have the Miracle box would be interesting. I've looked at the track list. There's some interesting stuff in there. Some stuff I think I've heard before, but there's some stuff which I haven't heard before. So when Father Christmas puts it under the Christmas tree, I'll be very happy to receive it.
We'll have a special news of the week type episode where Tim can rate that for you. Put it up on the YouTubes. Exactly.
But anyhow, that's your CD of the week and music news of the week.
Yay! Music news, music news, music news.
Fabulous jingle. Okay, so
I like how mine was so less energetic than when Tim does it.
Yeah, yours was just like
music news. Anyway, all right, it is Tim's turn to pick an episode topic.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So this one, I'm thinking about this. So Joy caught me in the act this week or last week, and maybe a few times before. So as everybody knows, Joy lives around the corner from me. We do this on Zoom because it's technically easier to do it.
Yeah.
But Joy does live around the corner from me. And, her and Charlie drive around doing various stuff, obviously.
Going down the Roanoke Street.
Exactly. And I've decided to kick back up my walking. I really need to get in shape, and it's good to walk. And in fact, I even bought an MP3 player, not the thing that plugs into your phone, a separate MP3 player just for my walks. And it's got gigs and gigs of music that's not on my phone. And I've been really enjoying that. It's been pretty good. So I've been doing these walks, and then sometimes Joy will ping me and goes, we saw you on Roanoke Street.
It's always you with the yellow hoodie on. And I could see Charlie like honked at everything. And Charlie's like, he did not hear me, did he? I was like, he's in his music zone. He can't tell.
Well, I probably would have heard, because I bought very expensive Bose noise-canceling headphones that were $360 or whatever they were. And they are the best thing ever. And like, you put them on and the entire world just disappears. Traffic noise goes, and you're completely in the zone with your music. And you don't even have to have them that loud. They're really, you're in that world. And I suffer from tinnitus, and I didn't know this when I bought them, but apparently noise canceling headphones really aggravate tinnitus if you are a tinnitus sufferer. Because what it does is it creates a negative of the outside sound and then pumps that really loud into your ears. So you can't hear those sound frequencies because it's canceling other frequencies out. But there is still loud noise going into your ears.
Makes sense. Yeah. Tim was like, and Tim had the arms going and everything, everybody. He was just going at it. And Charlie's like, he honked. He went, hey, look, there's Tim. As he's like waving. I was like, he can't hear you. And then I instantly thought, I was like, he's just got a bunch of ear damage from all the guitar days. So I told Charlie, I was like, I can't hear you.
Yeah, so I've just got my Audio Technica headphones on with the cable. They don't noise cancel. And I had them reasonably quiet, but they cup your ears so much I would have not heard Charlie honk his horn.
Well, if you ever see the blue Prius with a pink hood riding down the road, it's Charlie.
Exactly. And if you ever see me walking along with a bright yellow hoodie with a Moonraker badge on it, that would be me.
And now you've told them that's the perfect time to kidnap you, Tim, because you'll never hear him coming.
Goodness me.
All right. Well, anyway, moving along.
Okay. So on that topic of Joy catching me in the act, I decided to create a playlist of songs that we could talk about. And these are walking songs.
I kind of thought maybe that's where this was going.
Yeah. So I went through my my library. I found some really good walking songs. And I thought, well, maybe we can discuss that and see where the conversation takes us.
Fair enough. All right. What's our first song?
Okay. So this is a song that you will no doubt be familiar with. It's a very popular song, which is Walking on Sunshine. But before you go into your story, I'm not talking about Katrina and the Waves. Oh no, we are starting with rock royalty, and that is Dolly Parton's version of Walking on Sunshine from her album Treasures from 1996.
Which I have heard, and it is amazing. And Walking on Sunshine is such an upbeat, happy song in general, because it's literally about walking on sunshine. It's only a good fit for her to have done a version, right?
Oh,
and have you ever seen her perform it live?
I haven't. The things I like about Dolly is she does unusual covers. Mm-hmm. Like I was listening to an album she done the other day, and she did that song Shine.
Yep. So the reason I ask is you need to, when you have a second, just Google her singing it live. That's the only reason I know this exists, by the way. I don't own the album or got out of my way. I was watching like a concert with her, and she's so cute because you know how she likes to, because she's not playing a guitar in this specific song because it's not really, you know what I mean? She's got her little, like, have you ever seen the way she kind of like moves her hands up and down like this, moves her shoulders? Tim can see me. You guys can't see me. But if you've seen Dolly live, she's very upbeat and happy while she's singing it. It's super cute.
Yeah, I mean, I've also heard her do Bon Jovi songs as well.
Oh, yeah, I think she's probably, and that's like, she says she enjoys doing covers, but she doesn't really do the same covers over and over again. And she's done one thing that I thought was cool. I am not a bluegrass fan at all. I will just put that out there. I respect the artistry of it. I respect the music. It takes certain people to do that. I am not one of them. But she did a bluegrass album not too long ago that I actually enjoyed some of the music on there too. And she said quite a few songs of those were covers. I think the reason why I am not a bluegrass fan is I got saturated. So Tim, have you ever heard of the Galax, where they have the Bluegrass Festival every year? Mm-hmm. What is it called? Yeah. So it's the world's largest. Did you know that?
It wouldn't surprise me. It's in the right neck of the woods to be the world's largest bluegrass festival. So
I grew up right by Galax. So every year in Galax, they have this bluegrass festival. What is it? Oh, what is it called? Fiddler's Convention. That's what it's called. Old Time Fiddler's Convention. And every year the Fiddler's Convention happens. And I'm just going to tell you guys the truth. It is an excuse for a bunch of people who enjoy this music, but just to be fair, how many other rock concerts and other events are like this? To drink a lot of alcohol and to stay in a certain area for a very amount of time and play together, have fun together. You know, there's a lot of little breakout sections, that kind of thing. You bring in a lot of people but what they do is they take Galax. It's a very small town to begin with, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. And so they take over the entire town for a week. You can't go anywhere or do anything without 1,000 people everywhere. There's one hotel in Galax, and it's like a pink. It's literally physically pink. I have never seen any vehicle parked in that hotel parking lot ever, besides when the Fiddler Convention comes in. I'm convinced the only reason that business was in business for as long as it was, I think it finally closed, is because of the Fiddler's Convention every year. So anyway, that's probably why I do not care for fiddling music. Fiddler's music, whatever you want to call it, bluegrass. But Galax, there was this funny article. I'll just leave it at this because we'll get back to Dolly in a second. I'm going full circle here. There was an article once that there was a couple, and when I say it is the biggest in the world, it is. People come in from other countries that are really big into bluegrass music. There was a couple. They made the newspaper in Galax, Tim. They named the road. They're from Japan. And they named the road that they lived on. Because, you know, like when you build your own road, you can name them or whatever. Mm-hmm. They named it Galax.
Oh, wow.
And for those who don't know, Galax is spelled Galax. So it's like galaxy, but not. So the way we pronounce it's kind of weird anyway. But anyway, so moral of the story is even Dolly, after all of that, can make me enjoy bluegrass music. She's the only one.
I must be said, the Dolly album I listened to yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, my wife has a zero tolerance for bluegrass music, for banjo and for fiddle music. She grew up in that environment. Her brother was learning banjo growing up. Her dad played banjo and fiddle. And she has got zero tolerance for that. And I've probably told the story about her dad wanting to lend me a banjo and she shut that right down. It's like, shut it down, not happening. And for someone who's incredibly supportive and, you know, supports me playing music and going out and playing gigs and buying stuff I don't need, she shut that one right down. But anyhow, my point being is I played this Dolly album that was mostly bluegrass, which had the song Shine on it, and she didn't even mention it. So, Dolly has this way of getting it in. I don't know how she does it, but she does.
So she can do literally anything from Walking on Sunshine to bluegrass music, basically, is what me and Tim are getting on. Oh, by the way, this is the 86th, this past year's was the 86th annual Old Fiddlers Convention in Galax. So it's been going on for 86 years. And when I say people travel from all over the world, they literally do. You can Google Galax, Virginia, and that's the only thing that comes up. But I hate to say this, locals kind of avoided it, Tim, because it was just a bunch of drunk tourists kind of running around.
There you go.
But to their defense, how many other music events have you been to, Tim, or long-term music concert? What's the word I'm looking for? Conventions? They're all like that. It's not just the Fiddlers one, let's be honest.
Oh, I mean, I used to play those VW Beetle festivals with Ian Husbands, and yeah,
festival. That's the word I was trying to find. I couldn't find the word festival. Conventions, what are they called? All right. Well, yes, that. But I've seen the pictures of the VW festivals. They look kind of fun, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, we used to have a lot of fun. We was way into that world, and we used to do Bug Jam, and then there was another one of them similar to that. It was earlier on in the year. I can't remember, but it was like a period of 4 or 5 years, and we did it once or twice a year. And there was so much fun to do. Good people, good fun, and music.
I know Wispy Goes and Die, maybe.
Yeah, I think they have a they have a VW camper van, but I mean, I didn't have a VW van or Beetle. It's just that you was in that world. But Really good fun. Really good fun.
All right. Well, this had nothing to do with walking. Moving along.
Well, if you have a VW camper van, I think you get used to walking with it because they do break down often. So.
And they're expensive to fix, is what I've heard, because the parts are hard to come by. But anyway, this is not a channel about fixing VW buses. All right, what's your next walking song, Tim?
Okay, so I'm taking a complete 180 move away from Dolly.
Okay,
and this one is from 1992. And this is Pantera and the song Walk.
Okay. I heard that's, yeah. You were going to ask me. I was like, I have heard of it, but I'm not going to be honest with you. I don't know a lot about Pantera. I just kind of know a few of their songs. Don't come for me, internet. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing.
Well, they were a sort of speed thrash metal band from the early 90s. The guitar player used to be called Diamond Darrell. And then he became Dimebag Darrell way after the fact. He's famous for playing a Dean ML guitar. He played Randall solid-state amplifiers. And it was a real different, hard sound compared to some of the other metal that was out at the time.
See, I know more about Dimebag Darrell than I do about Pantera. And sadly, it's because of where he was murdered.
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, he left, I think Pantera split up. And then he had a band called Damage Plan, I think it was. And they were doing a gig somewhere. And then sort of some fan who blamed him and his brother for breaking Pantera up, shot and killed them all on stage. It was terrible.
And then I thought they wasn't he known for doing something with like Anthrax, the band, or something for a little while?
Yeah,
I don't know.
A lot. He apparently was an incredibly friendly guy and knew a lot of people in that metal community. So, yeah, I think he probably would have jammed with him or recorded with him. It was that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I've heard his story and it's really sad. And he's supposed to be known as a really good guitarist. The only thing I know about this song is it says respect and walk a lot in it. That's just like respect, walk. What did you say? And then it's just like respect, walked, and that's like all I remember.
One of the things I like about this song is, did you ever watch Beavis and Butthead when it was out originally?
Yeah, but I was more of a Daria fan. We've talked about that.
Yeah. Well, the best part of Beavis and Butthead, of course, is when they would comment on the videos.
Yeah.
And I have a memory of this coming on, and they're like, yeah.
Of course. I mean, that was the best part of the show, though, as a whole, is always the music videos. Mm-hmm. The rest of the show, I can't tell you anything about it. It kind of becomes a blur. And but my personal opinion is the best thing about Beavis and Butthead was Daria came out of it.
Well, there we are.
There we are. It all came 360. If you guys have never watched Daria, go do it. It's worth your time. If you liked Beavis and Butthead, even if you didn't, it's definitely worth your time. I'll find a picture, Tim, write it down on Instagram. Me and my best friend went as Daria and Jane for Halloween, probably 4 or 5 Halloweens ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll post it as my honorary picture.
There we are. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's move on to another song, which is walking themed. And this one, again, is from 1992. And this is Annie Lennox, Walking on Broken Glass.
I knew that was going to be one of the ones. When you said that was the first one that came to mind. Now, who was the guy you said writes with Annie Lennox? What is his name?
It's Dave Stewart. So Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox were in the Eurythmics together.
Yeah.
And all those classic Eurythmics songs are written by Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart. Now, Dave Stewart went off to do production and songwriting and all that kind of stuff. He's a real musical genius, and he's worked with lots of different acts. And around the same time, Annie Lennox went off and she had a solo career.
Yeah.
She had that song, Why? But I actually really like this song, Walking on Broken Glass.
Yeah, I only asked that because I can never remember the guy's name. Not that it's related. I will say, I don't know. That was one of those iconic songs that brought in that kind of genre of music. I don't know how you describe it, though. It's kind of like, it's dark, but it's poppy. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain it. Because, it's literally talking about walking on broken glass, but I love Annie Lennox's voice when she says you were the sweetest thing that I ever knew. She has such a dark, sultry voice. And I would say she probably is a mezzo-soprano, but she has a very dark tone to her voice, which was like a big thing, I think, during this time frame. Kind of coming off the synthetic 80s pop thing, going into the grunge. There was like a genre right between that. It sounded like very dark, poppy music. Am I going crazy, or does that make sense?
No, I think you're right. I mean, it was a sort of reaction to the 80s sound, I suppose, and tastes were changing and what have you. But I'd never really given it a lot of thought, but I think you're right with that.
Well, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of another example. And of course, now that I said it, my brain's gone completely. There was just this kind of like, and it was even some of the music, the bands that had did like this, like the Cars and all that kind of stuff in the 80s, they had that kind of synthetic pop sound. And then they got a little darker. And then it seems like it went kind of like a grungy, like whole garbage kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you didn't know I was talking about bands and I just said whole garbage kind of thing, that would have been a really strange statement. I realized that coming out of it, but that was the first ones that came to mind. I should have went whole Smashing Pumpkins.
we should do an episode on popular bands with bizarre names when you think about it.
It really, there's so many. Like, that would be the longest episode we've ever done, Tim. And then I will be the one who will sit here and try to analyze it. What Tim's going, I don't really think it's that deep, Joy. Yeah. Oh, another example. I guess, no. I can't think of another example, but there was a genre there. I swear there was, everybody. So here's a question. Do you define Annie Lennox as a diva? Like, is she in like the diva category to you? And I'll explain why.
Well, I mean, the album is called Diva that it comes from. But when I think of your traditional divas, Annie Lennox to me is a lot more straightforward.
I think so, but I think that she's like, in her voice sound, I think she could have done more diva stuff if she wanted to. That's the only reason I bring it up, because the name of the album was Diva, so it was on my mind. And I was like, is she a diva? I don't really put her on that pedestal, but the more I think about it, the more she totally could have been. She's got such a great voice.
I mean, she does. I mean, maybe from a voice perspective, but when you think of the diva, you think of the attitude that goes with it.
That's true. She never really had that.
And I don't see Annie Lennox having someone who has all those amazing airs and graces that these diva types have. She seems a lot more straightforward, a lot more switched on, and a lot more not in that world.
She's not Elton John asking somebody to turn off the wind, is what you're telling me.
No, I don't get that sense. I've never met Ms. Lennox, but I don't get that sense from her.
If she's listening, please come on the show. We'd love that. As the running joke goes, one day somebody's going to be like, okay, let's move along from that joke.
Yeah, we'll get a phone call for someone from, I don't know, Huey Lewis and the News. Going, okay, I'm coming on your show.
I've heard you've asked 10 times now. All right. I think the first one will be Jerry Halliwell trying to decide if she was actually singing in the live version to defend herself. All right. What else are we going to talk about as far as walking goes?
Okay. So this one comes from 2004, and yet again, another cover version. Now, many people would say the original is the definitive version of this song, which is by Nancy Sinatra. I would disagree. That's not the definitive version. I would say the definitive version of These Boots Are Made for Walking from the album Sings America, a classic, probably not a great seller, but still a classic. And that would be by David Hasselhoff.
I knew that was coming. So here's another question for you, Tim. Have you ever heard the Jessica Simpson version?
I have heard that. That's on the soundtrack to the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes. We're not going to talk about it very much. I was just curious if you had heard that version. I mean, to be fair, she made it very pop sounding. I appreciate David Hasselhoff. Isn't there somebody else like featured in his version? There
is, and I can't think of who it is. I don't have it up in the notes.
It doesn't matter. I was just curious. I thought that there was two voices. I don't know how I feel about David Hasselhoff's version. It's a version of a song. Why do you think this one is the best version, Tim? I'll let you speak.
Because it's being sung by Michael Knight. That man, one man can make a difference. Maybe I have a mild obsession with everything David Hasselhoff related. I don't know. It speaks to me on a level I can't fully express.
So that's the Sings America, right? When he would do the Sings America thing?
Yeah, he did a whole album of covers of that, classic Americana songs.
Have you seen that picture of him so he is wearing boots, just to clarify, everyone. But there's like a little patch on his jeans and it's got like an eagle.
Well, of course.
I can't take it seriously.
I tell you, you should go on the David Hasselhoff YouTube channel, official YouTube channel, where he has all the pop promo videos for his 80s pop career, which were only released in like Germany and Austria. But of course, now it's YouTube. Anyone can watch this stuff. And there's some comedy to be had, even as a fan of David Hasselhoff. I watched some of these the other day and they're hilarious. Hannah looks at him and she's like, oh, goodness sake.
I do know he's a Guinness World Record Book winner. Did you know that, Tim?
Is that for when he personally tore down the Berlin Wall?
No, he was the most watched man on television at some point.
Yeah, Baywatch. Yeah, because Knight Rider made him famous, but Baywatch made him hold his money because I think, as I said before, the season 1 of Baywatch, which was bankrolled by NBC, did incredibly poorly, but it started to do well in syndication and in India and places like that. So he bought the rights to it and then made more episodes and all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, but I just knew that. But yeah, I can't. I don't know what it is. I can't. I don't know how I feel about his version. Maybe I need to go back and because he was born in the U.S., right? But for some reason, he was super popular in like Germany and Switzerland and all those areas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as an actor, he was popular in the United States, and he was popular worldwide. But his music career took off in Germany for some reason. They really connected with him.
Well, if we have any Germans who are listening and would like to explain the connection to me, I'll be happy to hear. Tim has a very fond connection as well. He'd love to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Oh, David Hasselhoff. I had forgot that existed, but I remember the Sings America, and I just thought it was weird that there was just like one little patch. It's not in a great place either. It's like near his shin. And it's got like a little eagle, and it just looks like USA.
Well, he's showing that he's a working man wearing his blue jeans, and they've worn through, so he's fixed it, and he's fixed it in the only way he knows how, which is by putting a patriotic patch on it.
I'm sure. Well, the rest of the jeans look pristine, right, Tim?
Well,
all right. Well, David Hasselhoff, if you're listening, I'm kidding. I'm not going to say it again. All right. What's the next one, Tim?
Okay, so this one is from 1979, and this is The Police, and this is Walking on the Moon.
Okay, so I haven't heard that song in a long time. Now, are you team The Police, or do you like Sting when he was by himself?
Definitely The Police. I mean, I do like a lot of Sting's solo stuff, but it gets a bit album-orientated rock, middle-of-the-road-ish. The Police had I don't know, an anger isn't the right word, but it has a passion about it. And some of that Sting solo stuff doesn't have that.
I'm the same. I like him with The Police better. And the only thing I really remember about this song is there's something about taking giant steps, walking on the moon, and then it says keep it up about 1,000 times right at the end. So, but I mean, it's classic, late 70s, The Police pop music.
Yeah. 79. So.
See, look at Tim. He knows better than I do. But I just, and if I remember right, the music video looks very early 80s too. Like I think there's like a guy wearing like a puffy jacket. Somebody's got like shoulder pads.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing that used to bother me about the video. They used to show it on Top of the Pops when it was in the charts. And they're at Kennedy Space Center, which I found out, way after the fact. And I've been to Kennedy Space Center since several times.
I have too.
Yeah, it's good fun. And they're in the rocket garden, and it's an Atlas V rocket that they have out there. And Stuart Copeland is drumming on the engine with drumsticks. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, isn't he going to damage that spaceship?
That's the whole story. I thought there was going to be another statement.
No, it used to. I don't know why it used to bother me. It's like, well, don't damage the spaceship with your drumsticks.
But the thing about it is, I feel like spaceships have to be able to withhold a lot, right? Because they're going
one thing, they have to be super ruggedized because they go up into space. They go through max Q, so it's like all this maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle, and it's shaking and all this kind of stuff. And
the force just like pushes them down. They have to go literally through the ozone layer, right?
Yeah, have to go all that kind of atmosphere and stuff like that. So they're super tough and ruggedized. And secondly, the rockets that's in the rocket garden are ones that are not used. That they're ones haven't even been flown. The engine casing probably doesn't even have an engine in it.
Look at you, Tim. You were worried for that rocket and no need. I know what you're talking about, though, because there's like a big, like circular looking rocket thing behind them. But I had never once thought about him beating on. I don't even know if I realized it was a real rocket. I probably just thought it was like a prop, honestly.
No, I think it's the same Atlas V rocket that they now have in Kennedy Space Center where it's closed in.
Huh. That makes sense. I guess I need to go look at Kennedy Space Center and see if we can find it. Touch the exact area, like make it a goal to touch the area where he was drumming or something.
Maybe something like that.
I can confirm if there's an actual motor in there for Tim. So for those who don't know, Tim's super into like rockets and like space and that kind of thing. He likes to watch like all of the takeoffs and different things. So he would be the one who'd be worried about them destroying a rocket ship by beating on it.
Exactly. And also further to that, SpaceX now have a Falcon 9 rocket at Kennedy Space Center in a new exhibition. So I really need to get back down to Florida to go and see that.
Well, that's fair. I would wait until after hurricane season. That's my advice.
Absolutely. I'm gonna wait till after we go on our trip to Canada and then save up some more money is what I'm gonna do.
Fair. For those who don't know this, Joy was born in Florida. So we used to go all the time when I was a kid. So that's why I've been to Kennedy Space Center quite a few times with parents. Everybody's like, wow, didn't need to know that. Cool. All right. What is our next song, Tim?
Okay. So this one comes from 1985. Now, I didn't know whether you'd be familiar with this, but I thought I was going to mention it anyway. Okay. And this is Walking in the Air by Aled Jones. And it's famously from the cartoon The Snowman. Is this complete new news to you?
I have no idea what those words mean.
Well, let me explain. So back in the 80s, we only had 3 TV channels in the UK.
It sounds like he's telling me a story from like yesteryear. We only had 3 channels, Joy.
But it's true, just 3 channels.
All right.
So you're all 3 black channels. And white. No, they weren't. And they came out with a new channel called Channel 4. That's its name. And they had lots of unique programming.
Really creative. Channel 4.
Yeah. Well, what else are you going to call it? Channel 7? That'd be confusing.
Anyway, all right.
And they had a lot of new and unique programming. And the Christmas that they first started broadcasting, they had this cartoon called The Snowman. And it it was based on a book by Raymond Briggs. And the story is this it's a cartoon, but this little boy builds a snowman and he comes in the house and he wakes up in the night and the snowman comes to life and he goes out and the snowman gets him and they fly in the air and they go off to the North Pole and they have an adventure for an evening with all the other snowmen and have a great time. And then they come back and he goes back and the snowman comes in the house and he tucks him in bed and then he wakes up in the morning and the snowman has melted and it's so sad.
That is really sad.
Anyhow, the centerpiece to this whole thing is when he gets first the snowman grabs him arm and he takes him up in the sky and they're flying together. And it's this song, Walking in the Air. And Alan Jones was a choir boy who became famous for this song. And I think he then sang other things. And I think he became a chat show presenter or something. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, that was a lot. It makes me think of, have you ever seen, I don't know what time frame this would have been, but there was a commercial and they re-show it. Not that we have live TV anymore, but back in the day when I had live TV and I had more than 4 channels because this was probably more late 90s. There's a Campbell soup commercial with the snowman and he like puts him in front of the bowl of soup and then so what it is this little kid walks in and he's been outside playing in the snow and they make him into a snowman because he's really cold and his mom makes him a warm bowl of Campbell soup. So as he's eating it, like he's thawing and he becomes a person. That is one of the most iconic like Christmas commercials. It's not really about Christmas. Snowman, it's just that time of year. And when you were talking about that, when you said he melts, it made me think of that commercial. There you go. So if you guys have never seen that, I don't know why you need to know about it, but it was a cool commercial. Do they do that in the UK around Christmas, like show the same commercials year after year? Yeah,
being a semi-developed country, we have TV commercials that are themed.
Well, no, but I didn't know if you guys did we had ones that were constantly. They would repeat them every year for the holiday season.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
No, Tim, I thought you guys had no commercial. You only had 4 channels. What's the point of a commercial?
Well, only when we had 4 channels, only 2 of them had commercials on them.
Fair enough. I mean, it's just, so did the UK TV shut off at 10 p.m. every night?
Well, when I was growing up, certainly 70s, 80s, TV would finish at midnight or 1 a.m. or something, and it would play the national anthem, believe it or not, and then they would go to a test card.
So in America, my mom, I think, said it was 10 or 11 in the 60s, and it would just go to the test card. I don't know what the last show was. I think she said it was the news or something.
It was something like that. And then TV then wouldn't start again till about lunchtime the following day.
Huh. I don't know if that was true. I assumed it came back on at 6 a.m. I'll have to confirm with my mother. I don't know. I think it's weird, though, that the national anthem play. That's a very American thing. I wonder if ours had the national anthem. I'm going to give it a Google later because that sounds like a very American thing to do.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, as we know, we enjoy celebrating the national anthem at every event you ever go to. So putting it on the TV when it shuts down, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right. So anyway, now that we all learned the story of this kid with his snowman, I kind of want to watch that now, though. It sounds cute.
Yeah, it's very uplifting until the snowman dies, basically.
And this is based on a book?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's not the holiday season yet, but Tim's got me thinking about it.
There we are. See, I'm getting ready.
All right. What's your next song?
Okay. So this one is from 1985. This is from the album Brothers in Arms from our friends Dire Straits. And this is the Walk of Life,
which is one of my favorite songs.
It's a good song. Yeah. I mean, everything on Brothers in Arms is first class. I mean, that was really they had lots of good albums prior to this, but Brothers in Arms was the album that made them Dire Straits.
I mean, I don't know anybody who can't. He do the walk? He do the walk of life. I don't know that little groove right there, because it's kind of like they were in that new wave real style at this point, I would say. And so that one's really fun. And I mean, here comes John singing oldies, but I feel like this song's probably made them a lot of money on movies. It's such an upbeat kind of new wave sound. I guarantee you, if you looked up the royalties of this song, they made a lot of money off of this.
Oh, I mean, the track, everything of it, Money for Nothing. I mean, the whole album is littered with hits. So Far Away's on here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and everybody thinks of Sultans of Swing, I think, when they think of Dire Straits, but I think of Walk of Life.
Well, there we are. See, it's good not to go for the obvious hit.
So this was one of their bigger hits. I'd say, though, Sultans of Swing is what everybody thinks of, right?
I'd say they're probably thinking Money for Nothing, I would say.
That's true, too. Okay, so I have mentally blocked that song out of my brain, and here's why. I had a friend who was a roommate years ago, and he was learning to play the guitar, and he wanted to learn Money for Nothing really badly. And he wasn't playing badly. Like, he wanted to play it really well, and he was kind of a newer guitar player. He played it nonstop for what felt like 6 weeks. And I feel bad now because, like, he finally got it. He just wanted to perfect it. It was like his favorite thing to play, because I do that now, play my ukulele. Like, I'll play the same song over and over and over again. I'm sure Charlie's ready to beat his head into the table. And now I feel bad. But yeah, I think I've mentally knocked that song out for that reason.
Yeah, the knack is, if you are learning to play Money for Nothing, what you need is a Gibson-style guitar. You put it on the bridge pickup. You wind the tone control all the way off. You then play it with your fingers without a pick. And then after you've recorded it, you boost the mids. I forget which frequency it is. You boost the mids and triple track it. That is how you get the Money for Nothing sound.
Well, I wish you'd have been here, because you might have saved me some torture. It ranks up there with that other song that I will not name, that everybody, because it's CDG, thought they could play in high school. Anyway, moving along.
my brain can't accept even the title of that song.
I would physically get ill. And if you know, you know. If you don't, just Google what's the easiest song with C, D, and E. C, G, and E.
Exactly. Terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, moving along.
Okay. So let's have a look at this one. Okay. So this one is from 1957. This is bang up to date. And this is Fats Domino and I'm Walking.
Hold on. Fats Domino, he did Blueberry Hill, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So bipartisan, that's not the word I'm looking for.
Everyone on every side of the political spectrum can really get into Fats Domino, you know.
That's not what I was trying to say. By a smidge, I guess, I am somehow, like, me and Fats Domino are basically like friends, like we're mutual, we hang out together. So here's why. I went to this concert when I was in high school. It's something the chairman of the board, it was a local band, but the guy who wrote Blueberry Hill was in that band. He wrote part of the song. I don't know if he's like credited or whatever, but he swears he did. And so I met and talked with this guy. So thereby and large, Tim, I'm basically BFFs with Fat Domino, even though he passed away.
Yeah, you and Fats were best friends, really.
I mean, yeah, it's obvious. And like, you didn't get to call him this because like you weren't his friend, but those of us who were close, we called him just Dom. He went by Dom, like for short. It was just a thing. You wouldn't have known. Anyway, so yeah, I met some guy who wrote some part of the song Blueberry Hill once in like 2007. I don't know where bipartisan came through into that, but just go with it.
Perfect. All right, Joe, let's move on to another song, shall we?
I took a whole turn. We didn't talk about the song at all. All right, moving along.
Okay, so this one from a similar era from 1964. And this is the Drifters and Under the Boardwalk. Now, I was very tempted to mention the Bruce Willis version from The Return of Bruno, a song which I actually listened to a couple of days ago when I was walking to tie the whole thing together. However, I thought, no, I'm not going to mention Bruce Willis and The Return of Bruno, even though I just mentioned it. But let's talk about the Drifters and Under the Boardwalk.
So I come from a huge family who was into, which is why you would have found me at a concert with the chairman of the board. They were really big into beach music and kind of a Motown R&B sound. So I absolutely adore Under the Boardwalk. It is the song that defines that genre for me. Mm-hmm. That beach sound. I don't know any other song that's so perfect for it. Obviously, I prefer the Drifters version. I feel like we talked about in March the other version Tim mentioned in a previous episode, and I had some weird, wacky things to say. But it's got such a beautiful sound. It would have been I mean, they started in the 50s, probably the Drifters. I think they still like try to tour, but it's not the same members. Like, it's one of those bands that's had 87 members. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's
they
one
keep
of those things where you have the original band, and then various people drop out due to ill health, or we lose them, or they just want to retire, and then new people come in. So you end up with the original Drifters, but it's not the people that did this song.
Well, and see, the second Drifters, not the first one, had Benny King in for Ben E. King in it for a little while. And they were being called Ben E. King and the Drifters. That was the second. The first one was about 5 members. I know there was a Charlie, a Steven, a Jeff, very common names. But yeah, I think that they probably still tour to this day with all the different versions of the Drifters. And I'm sure this song is a huge favorite. Because, I mean, who doesn't like doo-wop and beach music and happiness?
Exactly. It's probably their big closer. It's their big encore song.
I would say so. And don't they have that song, Does a Fool Fall in Love? Or Save the Last Dance for Me. I know they do a version of that. Yeah. And then Save the Last Dance for Me, though, I actually really like the version Michael Bublé did. Have you ever heard that one?
I don't know if I have heard that.
He did a really nice version of it. And then there was another guy, he's from the UK, and he was on the UK Voice, Oliver, something like that. He did a pretty cool version of it, too. I liked both of those. I'm sorry if my UK fans that I don't remember Ollie or Oliver's full name, but his version was cool. So I would say it's either got to be Under the Boardwalk or Save the Last Dance for Me. It's either their opening or their closing, period.
I think they open with one and close the other. I've never seen them, but I'm just assuming that's to be the case.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I would probably, even though it's not the original lineup, I would go to the concert. It'd be fun because their music's so good.
You know it's going to be a good show. The music's going to be great. And I'm sure whoever is in the band now is, they're not the originals, but they're going to be fantastic singers.
There we go. I do know that they were popular in the UK too, from what I heard. I heard they had like a big following, which was weird for their kind of music. Not weird, but I say weird, but not normal. So that was cool too. But anyway, moral of the story is, everyone, I would still go see them, even if it's not the original members.
There we are. I'm glad we've cleared that one up, Joy, because I was as I was putting this episode together, I was a little concerned.
I like how all my things related to the song are like a piece about the song, then there's a circle, and then somehow I try to make it relate back at the end. It's a loose tie, but I try to bring it back home. All right. Well, at least we're not talking about how cars work or something. What's the next song?
Okay, so the next one from 1986 from the album 5150. This is Van Halen and Love Walks In.
That's a good one. I figured this one was going to be on your... Who's singing in this one?
This would be Samuel Roy Hagar.
So it's Sammy Hagar. Okay. I'm not as... up on my what genre who's singing as Tim is when it comes to the Van Halen.
Where do you fall in the Van Halen versus Van Hagar debate? Are you Team Sammy? Are you Team Dave? Are you Team Gary Sharon, in fact, with that team one album they did?
I'm Team Dave.
I don't know. I'm Team Sammy. I like Dave. Dave is the party, he's the man. But I don't know. I like the music they made with Sammy Hagar.
It's hard, though, because we compare songs. I'm going to like songs from each of them. But I think overall, I'm probably Dave.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just...
And I think, I've spoken to Hannah about this. I think it's a product of growing up in this area because rock radio and stuff typically, I won't say only play, but they predominantly play the Dave era.
You're probably right, because that's just what I hear more of. And maybe it's because it's the original. That's what I was going to say when I was thinking. I was like, maybe it's just that's what my brain is attuned to. And it's what I think of when I think of Van Halen.
Yeah. I mean, I discovered Van Halen with Sammy. The first Van Halen I ever heard was Sammy. They didn't really play classic Van Halen growing up, radio, TV, or whatever. And I found Van Halen through my own means, and I discovered it with For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which we've spoken about before. So I don't know. I'm very loyal to the world of Sammy Hagar.
Well, and Eddie Van Halen had really nice hair. He really did.
He had fabulous hair.
Maybe that's what makes the difference, Tim. It was all the hair. He's not a bad looking guy even now. He's got a nice look to him. Maybe that's what it is, Tim.
Who's Sammy? Or
Eddie Van Halen. I think he looks pretty nice. I mean, he's dead now, but
I was going to say we lost him 2 years ago, so he doesn't look too good right now. But
well, he died of cancer, right? It was like 60s. But what I was saying is, what I've seen recent pictures of him, he wasn't a bad looking dude when he got older either. Maybe that's what it is.
He had a very good look about him. Seemed to look after himself and his hair and everything like that.
That's what matters, really. You know, it was the hair. But if we're gonna go there, I mean, Sammy's not a bad. He had a cool look to him too. So maybe I'm just being biased. I think you're right. It's probably just because the area I live in, that's what you see. That's what we heard a lot.
Yeah, and Sammy also claims he was abducted by aliens, and as a result, he's completely ageless. Like, if you pull up a picture of Sammy Hagar now, you look at that and you think, well, that's a guy in his late 50s. He looks pretty good. And he's like 75 or something.
And he's still got very blonde, curly hair.
Oh,
and wasn't he doing didn't he make like his own tequila brand with like Adam Levine or something?
No, he had his own tequila company called Cabo Wabo Tequila. He has a place in
that's what you called it
in Mexico called Cabo Wabo, which is a club, and that's the name of the tequila brand. And he had that for many years, and he sold it to some big brewing company for like $100 million. Like, his money, his wealth comes from his tequila, not from his music.
I mean, that's fair. Know what you got to. Well, we talk about a lot of artists have to kind of step out of their regular zone nowadays to make money. So I mean, that makes sense. And he had fabulous hair too. So I don't know why. I mean, the big blonde curls were gorgeous as well. Just saying. So.
Exactly. His 90s look on Right Here, Right Now is classic with the long curly blonde hair.
Well, he still has his kind of blonde curly hair, so that's nice. It's shorter. It looks a little rugged, but it's there. It's there. And to be, what did you say? He's got to be in his 70s?
I think he's 73 or 74. But I mean, he looks amazing.
He looks like he's in his 50s.
Yeah, he does.
Well, maybe we need to have a conversation about what he's putting in that tequila.
Well, he does claim he was abducted by aliens. So,
yeah, I have heard he says some weird things nowadays.
It's Sammy.
Maybe he was. Tim, how do you know the Red Rocker wasn't abducted by aliens?
Well, you don't know that, do you?
We'll never know. And with that, that's where we'll leave them, Tim, on Van Halen. Lord, that was funny. I kind of forgot that he was called the Red Rocker up until it came out of my mouth.
Yeah, he was into dressing all in the same color, so he was a Red Rocker.
He wore so much red. Now I think about it, in that Trans Am picture, was it the Trans Am always red too, like the cars and stuff?
He's a Ferrari collector.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know vehicles. All right, moving along.
Well, how could you not do a walking episode without having the Bangles from 1986 walk like an Egyptian?
So here's a question, Tim, since we're asking each other questions about this. Are you team the Go-Go's or are you more of a Bangles person?
Oh, Bangles, 100%.
I'm the Go-Go's.
See, I like Jane Wiedlin from the Go-Go's when she went solo, and Belinda Carlisle. I like a lot of her solo output stuff. But
that's true.
The Go-Go's were a great band, but they didn't resonate with me the same way that the Bangles did.
I mean, I think... And maybe this is just strictly because I heard the Go-Go's more growing up. For some reason, my mom was a big VH1 fan. I've told you that many times. I watched the pop-up music video. I feel like the Go-Go's were on there all the time when I was a child. So that's probably why. I think it's just strictly because I heard them more. Okay. And then you're right, Belinda Carlisle and all that. I heard the solo artists come out of it as well. So maybe that's part of why I feel like they seem larger to me than the Bangles. But I do love Walk Like an Egyptian. And that song played all the time on pop-up music video as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I had MTV growing up in my sort of mid to late teens, it still played on there. I mean, it wasn't the pop-up video version, but they played it continually. So
have you ever heard about how they wrote the song, like where the song comes from? So she was basically like, and I know this because it was on one of those behind the music whatever VH1 things, right? And she said one time she had drank too much wine, got a little tipsy, and said, I just wrote down walk like an Egyptian. And then that's where it came from.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
She's like, there's no real logical reason behind it. I was being silly while drunk and walked like an Egyptian. I thought, wrote that down and used it in a song. I mean, did we really think there was a, I guess, I don't know. I really would have thought there was like a big scene behind walking like an Egyptian. Not really.
No, it wasn't like the Monster Mash or anything. It was just something completely made up. But one thing about the Bangles, though, you do have Susanna Hoffs in the Bangles. And Susanna Hoffs is an amazing singer. She's a great guitar player, songwriter, and you cannot go wrong with Susanna Hoffs.
I mean, Eternal Flame.
Oh,
amazing.
Absolutely.
Now, that song probably has a bigger meaning than Walking Like an Egyptian, I would think. And that song is one of those ones that it has, like, her voice is so distinct. Like Susan Hoff's voice is gorgeous, and that song is perfect. It flows from her. I don't even know. It's like a picture when you hear that song.
And
that's the best way I can explain it.
And you know the story about that song, that when she recorded Eternal Flame, the producer told her, I think it was Janis Joplin, always cut her vocals naked. So he convinced Susanna Hoffs to do the same in the booth.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool, though.
And then later on, the producer or whoever it was said that they completely made that up.
So we'll never know.
Well, the Susanna Hoffs bit is correct. The Janis Joplin or whoever it was completely made
I thought you were saying I never told her that. That's funny. No. He just wanted it because she sounds so good. And she's a good guitarist, too, so...
Yeah, she had a signature Rickenbacker guitar for a number of years.
I mean, that makes sense. I don't know why. I just tend to go to the Go-Go's. But the more we talk about it, the more I probably could think of Bangles songs. Once again, it might just be, isn't it interesting that where you grew up and what you hear kind of defines, like, you know what I mean, Tim? I know we talked about this. Tim will say something that makes complete sense to him. And I'm sitting there going, wasn't that person a one-hit wonder? And then I'll name someone and he'll be like, I've never heard of it. Not even a little bit. All right. I guess we all thought everything was universal until we started talking. It's not, everybody. All right. Oh, well, Manic Monday. That's a good one, too.
Yeah. Written by Prince.
There we go. All right. Well, moving along from the Bangles versus the Go-Go's, maybe we'll have to take a poll, see what everybody thinks.
There we are. Well, what I was thinking, I was looking at the time. Let's do two more. Let's do two more of these songs.
Okay.
So this one, 1983, from the album Sports. This is Huey Lewis and the News and Walking on a Thin Line.
Well, speaking of our friends Huey, how you said they were going to be on the show soon. Sports is a great album. Didn't we do a whole episode on the Sports album?
Yeah, we covered it on one of our episodes before, but I really like this track. I mean, Sports from top to bottom is first class. But this, I don't know. This is a good cut from Sports.
Well, I feel like all of their big songs were in Sports. Walking on a Thin Line, though, I remember that song as one of the ones that wasn't as popular, but when I went back and listened to it, I really liked it. You don't hear it very much because he's like, it's kind of a little bit darker, I think, than what the rest of the Huey and the Lewis News, because, they do have a poppy sound, though that is a misconception. They're one of those bands that I feel like you think are like poppy and happy-go-lucky, but then when you actually pay attention to the words, they're not.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because this song's like, talk about like walking on a line. I just remember he's like walking on a line. He's loose in the streets. It's the middle of the night. He's laying in bed. It's a little bit darker than like what you think of like the power of love or something like that.
Well, that's a curious thing, actually.
Huh?
Well, it makes one man weak and another man sing.
I didn't get the reference at all. Like, there's a band called The Curie. Right over my... This episode has went off the Richter scale. Didn't get it at all. Thanks, Tim. That one went right past me. Somebody is screaming at me. Don't come for me, internet. I was like, what? I was like, there's somebody else who wrote that song and I never knew. Tim said it so authentically and looked right at me like so matter of fact for those who don't know. I was like, what? What am I missing?
Well, as you know, this is maybe not a classic example of this, but one thing I do enjoy doing is saying complete nonsense, but saying it so serious people think you're saying the right thing. And I don't know, there's something I enjoy about that.
Well, and Tim knows so many random things that, I would probably believe it. I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. I heard of that yesterday. Just like nod and walk off. Anyway, back to Huey Lewis and the News. I like that song, Tim. That's there.
There we are. Well, I'm glad you do, Joy. So let's move on to the last one of this episode.
Okay. People, right. If you're still listening.
So this one is from 1995. This, again, is another cover, and it's not some people would say this is the definitive version. Some people say the original was. And this is Walking in Memphis by Cher. Now, a lot of people love the Mark Cohn version, which is the original. But there's a whole load of people who don't even know about Mark Cohn and only know Walking in Memphis being by Cher.
See, I am on the Mark Cohn thing. Mm-hmm. I love Cher's voice because she's got a gorgeous, deep voice. Mark Cohn had a very distinct voice when he sang. Mm-hmm. Very intense, very larger than life, very important. And the way, the put on my blue suede shoes, like that intro. This is one of the songs I heard a lot growing up because it's one of my mom's favorite songs. I actually recorded a version of this and posted it out there. Got a lot of likes on it because it's a favorite of mine. I love to sing this one. But I will say it surprises me that people would only know the Cher version. So I feel like I hear the Mark Cohn version more.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who only know pop hits, for example, who listen to a pop radio station and wouldn't necessarily delve back in and trying to find stuff like that. By the same thing, people think Knocking on Heaven's Door is by Guns N' Roses.
That's true. I guess you're right. I'm probably giving them more. But the thing about it is Mark Cohn, I feel like I heard his version on the radio more, but maybe it's just because it was my mom's favorite. So therefore, that's what I heard. But Cher's version is gorgeous, too, because she has such a deep, sultry voice. It works very well. Now, the weird thing about me is Mark didn't really do very much else. I think know.
He's a very prolific singer and songwriter. He's put out a number of albums. He tours. He does all that kind of stuff. But I think Walking in Memphis was the lone radio hit.
See, I always wondered if maybe he was like a religious singer or something, but I think he's more of like a folksy type thing.
Sure, I think he is, but I mean, I think he's still out there playing, and he's written some amazing songs, but the only one that people will typically know is Walking on Memphis.
Well, there we go. I love this song. It is one of my favorites. I'm glad you chose it as one of your walking songs. I love it's a grandiose song is what it is. It's very larger than life. I don't know. How do they, maybe Tim can tell us, the way they give his ability, his voice, the way it projects and has like a very perfect, almost surround sound feel to it. And when Cher sings it, it's the same way. That's what's cool about this song to me. And it does sound like for that reason, he's telling a story.
Sure. And the other thing about Cher's reading of it is it's before she got into this auto-tune-tastic voice. This is just her pure Cher voice.
But the best Cher song will always be Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. I stand by that.
How about I Got You, Babe?
Oh, that's a good one, too. But I'm still Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. And I don't know what it is. Every time I hear that song, brings me full circle. Now, I Got You, Babe is the most karaoke song of all time.
That's true. And to bring it back to our earlier topic, she did a version with Beavis and Butthead.
Of course. I've never heard that, but that doesn't surprise me. No, that sounds right. Because it's been done 1,000 times. Now, I will say, I love the version of I Got You, Babe that they did at the Kennedy Center Honors for Cher. Mm-hmm. It was Adam, what is the guy who sings for Queen now? Adam Lambert. Levine came to mind. I knew that wasn't right. Adam Lambert and oh my gosh, why can't I think of names? She sings True Colors from the 90s.
Cyndi Lauper.
Why? My brain went completely. Anyway, their version that they did of I Got You, Babe on the Kennedy Center Honors was amazing. It was so fun. And I think Cyndi Lauper is one of the most underrated singers. That's my theory.
And also, she was the one who propelled professional wrestling into the fold in the 80s. I think I may have told that story before, but look it up.
Well, our last episode took a wrestling turn, so maybe we'll leave it at that.
There we are. I don't need to get back into that.
All right. Do you have anything else for the people, Tim?
Be kind.
Well, I have a little something. I didn't want to bring it up at the beginning because we didn't really talk about music news, but we recently found out a very famous person. I feel like we've talked about this a lot here recently, passed away. It's Angela Lansbury. Mm-hmm. And she was a very famous Broadway star. That's where she started before she became, Murder, She Wrote. So she was a wonderful singer and musician. She was in Beauty and the Beast. She was in one of the original movies, Mammy. She was in one of the original Sweeney Todds. She performed everywhere from Broadway to the West End. And I just wanted to say, so long, Mrs. Potts. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.